We are coming on the air tonight with the emotional testimony in the Hunter Biden case. His daughter Naomi taking the stand, what she said about her father's addiction as Hunter Biden faces a big decision. Will he testify in his own defense? We are live at the courthouse with the latest. And then the record-shattering heat wave continues in the West with new highs being set and more expected this weekend in other parts of the country. We're live in Phoenix for you with a look at how people are coping. In the original tonight, Florida says high school athletes can profit off their name, image, and likeness. We sit down with one athlete who just inked a six-figure deal. And you may love Taco Bell for its tacos, but there is a much hotter commodity being stolen and sold on the black market for tens of thousands of dollars. And then the explosive defamation lawsuit filed against Netflix from the alleged stalker in the hit series Baby Reindeer. How Netflix is responding later in the show. Hey, everybody, I'm Aaron Gilchrist in for Hallie tonight, and we begin with the big question going into the weekend. Will the president's only living son take the stand in his own defense on Monday as his historic trial winds down? You're looking at Hunter Biden here leaving court in just the last few hours. They wrapped up early today because the defense is trying to decide what they are going to do about their last witness. A witness believed to be Hunter Biden himself. Now, remember, he's facing 3 charges tied to the possession of a gun while using narcotics back in 2018. That's after some emotional testimony from his oldest daughter. During the defense's questioning, she told the jury that during the time period, her dad seemed good, hopeful even. The president's son getting emotional there as his daughter spoke, wiping away tears. But her testimony taking a turn during the cross-examination. The prosecutor here, Leo Wise, asking Naomi if she ever saw her father use drugs. She said she didn't. Now, Wise made the point that she wouldn't know what it would look like if her father was using drugs. Naomi responding to that, I guess not. Now, he also asked her about text messages with her dad on October 18th, 2018, 6 days after Hunter Biden bought the gun at the center of this case. Wise says the texts read, "I'm really sorry, Dad. I can't take this. I don't know what to say. I just miss you and want to hang out with you." Hunter responding with, "I'm sorry I've been so unreachable. It's not fair to you." That's according to Wise. The First Lady flying back from Normandy, France after the president's speech this morning to be in court, yesterday I should say, to be in court with her son today. Now, this case is a fast-moving one. The prosecution rested its case earlier today, and we expect the defense to rest on Monday. After that, Hunter Biden's fate goes into the hands of the jury. Mike Memoli outside the courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware. Danny Savalos has our legal breakdown here in just a second here. So, Mike, the mood today noticeably different than the past few days of the trial. We usually see a lot of big hugs, some high fives after the court day ends or goes into break. Talk to us about what we saw today. That wasn't the case, right?
Yeah, that's right, Aaron. There was certainly a somber tone as the Biden family was leaving court today after an abrupt course correction on the part of the defense team, seemingly after this testimony from Naomi Biden, Hunter Biden's eldest daughter. They really had hoped to use her testimony to help paint a picture of Hunter Biden in recovery. She said that when she spent some time with her father in Los Angeles in the summer of 2018, he was as clear as she had ever seen him, at least since the death of her uncle 3 years earlier. She introduced him to her future husband. They had some good time together. And then she talked about how she used his car in October of 2018, the car where that gun was ultimately found by Hallie Biden, who testified about her panicking and throwing it in the garbage yesterday, that she didn't see any drug paraphernalia. So that really fit the defense team's case that Hunter Biden was on a path to recovery and that his mindset would have been that he was not an addict when he filled out that form. Then came the cross-examination from the prosecution. They introduced those text messages, which did paint a very different picture. We saw that she was asked about a person named Frankie, who we know from earlier testimony was a drug dealer who Hunter had been in contact with in New York. So that certainly puts a significant amount of doubt into this picture that they were trying to paint about whether Hunter was still clean in this timeline when he purchased that gun. And Aaron, already, even before Naomi testified, the defense witnesses that had been called previous to her also didn't really seem to help Hunter's case. They were both employees of that gun store who indicated that the defense team was certainly trying to use this to cast doubt about whether Hunter Biden had filled out the entirety of that form. They judge had ruled out some evidence prior to the trial that may have cast even further doubt on that. But they were, in fact, really combative with Mr. Lowell, Hunter's defense attorney. So now the question is, what will Hunter Biden be able to offer to his case if he is called on Monday? That's an open question, and we'll certainly wait until Monday to find that out, Aaron.
Yeah, well, I'll be watching that really closely. I do want to ask you about the president as well here. We did hear him affirm yesterday in that interview with ABC News that he would not pardon his son if he's convicted. We have the potential for his son to take the stand here in a trial that's already been, I think, very painful for the Biden family. Talk a little bit, if you can, Mike, about some of the considerations now ahead of Monday's last witness, if that's Hunter Biden.
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult question for this president who, as our reporting showed today, really does blame himself in some ways for the predicament that his son is in. Had he not run for office, had he not decided to run for re-election, maybe his son would have been spared the scrutiny, the inspection of this dark period in his life. But this president has also expressed his respect for the rule of law. He has said he did not want to interfere in ongoing judicial investigations involving his son. And so pardoning him at this moment would be seemingly a bright line that he does not want to cross. But ultimately, I think the ultimate verdict here is going to determine what happens. Maybe he stops short of a pardon. Perhaps he could commute his son's sentence. That would be both legally and politically potentially problematic for him. So ultimately, at this point, it seems that they're going to let the case proceed here. And then, Aaron, it's worth noting that there's still another trial to come this fall, one that might be even more embarrassing, one that might be even more politically problematic for the Biden family, because that involves taxes, that involves sources of income, and that involves potentially even more embarrassing testimony from others in his life during this dark period, Aaron.
Yeah, this is far from over. Mike Memoli for us in Wilmington, Delaware. Mike, thank you. I want to bring in our legal analyst, Danny Savalos, now. Danny, the intention here with Naomi Biden's testimony was to try to create this reasonable doubt that we know defense lawyers try to create, right? I know it's hard to sort of read juries in cases like this, but what do you make of her testimony, and what do you think did it work for this jury?
You know, Naomi Biden's testimony services the defense's theme, which is, government, you can prove that Hunter Biden used a lot of crack, but you can't prove that he used it on this day, this day, this day, and this day, and all the days that he possessed a firearm. And it's really going to come down to, are the jurors going to get in that jury room and say, well, look, let's get real. They proved that there was plenty of crack use during this time. We can infer, and you're going to hear that word in closing quite a bit from the government, they can draw an inference that he was using at the time he possessed the firearm. The defense's position is going to be, you didn't prove it was on these particular days. And there was some risk in calling Naomi Biden because they confronted her with text messages that apparently the defense didn't bring out in their direct. And so that was a risk. And if you call a witness and that witness is confronted with information that the defense didn't bring out in their direct, it may look like they're hiding something. So I think Naomi Biden was a mixed bag. She obviously loves her father. She believed in him. And the jury might conclude that, yes, she was believable. Maybe she herself was deceived by an addict, as many people are by addicts thousands of times every day in America.
So let's talk about Hunter Biden a little more directly here, Danny. We could see him take the stand himself on Monday. I know you said it's not easy for a defendant to testify in their own case, generally not something that you would advise. What's the risk here, specifically in Hunter Biden's case?
Criminal defense attorneys are risk averse, and putting your client on the stand represents an unnecessary risk unless you can only get information from that witness that you can't get from anywhere else. And maybe that's the case here in that the defense thinks that, well, Hunter Biden can take the stand and say, I was not an addict on these days. And the government's evidence doesn't prove it. And, you know, normally I'd say you're not going to see Hunter Biden take the stand, but Abby Lowell has been taking some really good calculated risks. And I say good as a criminal defense attorney. I've been impressed, and I say impressed because as a criminal defense attorney, I too am risk averse. And you don't want to try something creative and become the butt of the courthouse jokes. And Abby Lowell has broken the mold in many ways. He brought Hunter to a congressional hearing, daring members of Congress to call him to the stand right then. So why not? He obviously has faith that his client can testify. So why not put him on the stand? In any other case, I might say there's very little chance Hunter Biden will testify. But with Abby Lowell at the helm, you may see him take the stand.
All right. We'll be watching to see if he rolls the dice. Danny Savalos with us tonight. Danny, thank you. And right now, millions are baking in record-setting heat stretching from Florida to California. Temperatures soaring well into triple digits in the country's first major heat wave of the year. Death Valley seeing 122 degrees. Phoenix there breaking another heat record with the high of 113 degrees yesterday, and a 111-degree day descending on Las Vegas earlier than ever. And with the official start of summer still 2 weeks away, about half of Arizona and Nevada are already under excessive heat alerts. Liz Kreutz joining us now from Phoenix, Arizona. I feel for you, Liz, out there in the heat today. You've been there for a couple of days, I know. Paint a picture for us. How bad is it really? How are people handling it? And how are the emergency folks helping?
Hey, Aaron, well, yeah, it is definitely hot, triple-digit temperatures right now. Yesterday, it was 113 degrees here, which was a record daily high for Phoenix for this time of year. You know, it's interesting. Obviously, it's the desert. They're used to hot temperatures. So you ask folks here, and they're like, you know what? We're used to this. But it certainly is early for this time of year, and it's coming off a really intense year last year when there was a 31-day heat wave of 110-degree straight days or more, and that led to 645 deaths in Phoenix. So that is a huge concern right now as we head into the summer. And also, it's leading to this big financial toll. I was talking to an expert, an extreme heat expert, a professor at Arizona State University. She talked about that toll. Take a listen to what she had to say.
When it doesn't go below 87 degrees, it's really a threat to public health at that point because you just don't have an opportunity to cool off. And in order to stay cool, you need to spend a lot more money on air conditioning and electricity.
And so there she's saying, look, we were 113 degrees here in Phoenix yesterday. It's still triple-digit temps now. She's saying the most notable thing there that people need to pay attention to is often the low. It was 87-degree low yesterday, and that just puts a toll on everybody because you're even using your air conditioning through the night. And so that's a big concern for folks, especially as we head into the summer 2 weeks away now, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, meteorological summer started, but we're just 1 week into that, right? So it's still early on here. What are officials there saying about, you know, what they anticipate, what they expect to be coming, and how folks can get ready for that?
Yeah, well, Phoenix says that they are preparing, and it's very interesting, actually. The state and the local cities have these heat mitigation directors now that try to work and mitigate these heat deaths. And we've talked about it earlier this week, but we were able to go to a fire department yesterday, and they showed us their new ice immersion strategy that they're using, where every single fire truck in Phoenix now is equipped with bags of ice and these body bags that they're able to use in real time. If somebody is dealing with a heat emergency and heat stroke, they can put them in this bag, cover them in ice. And they were telling us that they've been able to save people whose body temperatures were as high as 112 degrees. And by putting them in these body bags and immersing them in ice, they can drastically reduce their body temperature and save lives. So that is a new tactic they're using this year, and they're very hopeful and confident it will help reduce deaths this summer.
All right, Liz Kreutz for us in Phoenix. Liz, get in the car, turn the AC way up while you're there. Thank you. Well, tonight, Kansas City Chiefs defensive lineman BJ Thompson awake and alert. That's after having a seizure and going into cardiac arrest during a team meeting. That's according to Thompson's agent. The Super Bowl champs back on the field today without Thompson, of course, as big-name players and top members of the coaching team are talking about what happened. Listen.
That's a tough situation. I've had, we've been through a couple of those before in my time, and it's never fun. Thank goodness, though. I mean, if it had to happen, no better place than right here, where you have the support unit that knows what to do.
So really, parallels are starting to be drawn here to Buffalo Bills' Damar Hamlin. You see him right there. Remember, he collapsed on the field 2 seasons ago, had cardiac arrest there. He recovered thanks to the work of the medical teams that treated him. I want to bring in Shaquille Brewster now with more on this. So, Shaq, what did we learn about this emergency today?
Well, Aaron, we got a full update from the head athletic trainer of the Kansas City Chiefs. And in his depiction, you got a sense of not only how scary this entire situation was, but how it really was a team effort to save this player here. They said it was happening during a morning team meeting between the special teams unit. And as they were inside, not on the field, not experiencing any contact, that is when you saw Thompson begin to have a seizure. They said one player ran out, immediately alerted medical staff, and listen to the rest of what we heard.
We tried to stabilize BJ and then put him on the floor while he was still seizing, and then he went into cardiac arrest. So our team of that group of people provided CPR for him. He had one AED shock and came back, so he was only in cardiac arrest for probably less than a minute and a half. Our players, our security staff, everybody involved, coaches, staff, they were phenomenal in handling the crisis.
Now, Thompson was heavily sedated overnight, even placed on a ventilator at one point. Remember, he's now in a stable condition at this point, awake and alert. And doctors are not saying that they have any diagnosis. They don't know exactly why this happened. But get this, Aaron, the NFL mandates that teams have emergency action plans for situations like this. And we heard from the head athletic trainer that this team ran through a similar scenario just on Monday.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a good perspective to have on this. But, you know, you can't help but to think, right? We have Thompson here. We still think about DeMar Hamlin. 2 cases. Yeah. I know it's just 2. But are the NFL or other players saying anything about this kind of thing happening to 2 players in the league now?
Not much from the NFL, but, you know, you're hearing players who were there who saw him seize and suffer this cardiac arrest just talk about how scary it was. I want you to listen to what we heard from a fellow defensive end on the team.
I'm just glad to see that he's doing good, you know, and when you have a guy go down like that, you know, you never want that for anyone. And, you know, it's hard, but I will say this, he was, you know, we're blessed to have such great teammates and athletic trainers that helped him, and we're able and ready for that situation.
We also learned that there was a separate team meeting that occurred after this medical emergency. Then players were sent home, and that practice that was scheduled was then moved to today. We did see the players back on the field today. They talked to some of the members of the media, and of course they were boosted by that relatively good news, the fact that he's in such a better condition and that he's making progress, Aaron.
Yeah, a little bit of good news for sure. Shaquille Brewster for us today. Shaq, thank you. Well, some new data out today showing the economy added way more jobs than expected last month, and that could actually be bad news for those hoping for an interest rate cut to come soon. The Fed could be looking for things to slow down more before they think about cutting. We'll find out more when they meet next week. The president touting the numbers, saying, quote, the great American comeback continues, but congressional Republicans have a different vision, one that puts billionaires and special interests first. Let's bring in Brian Chung now to talk a little bit more about the numbers here. So, Brian, job growth appears to have held steady when you compare it to last month here. What do these numbers say about the current state of our economy?
Yeah, Aaron, and we got to be careful because sometimes you get the political goggles, sometimes you get the investor goggles as well. But we just have to remember what's good for Main Street, right? And it's unemployment remaining low and adding jobs to this economy. So, yes, the unemployment rate did catch some attention because it rose to 4%. We haven't seen a 4 number on the unemployment rate since January of 2022. But look, this is the chart historically. And you can see, even, yes, though it ticked up to 4%, it is still historically low and much lower than the 15% that it peaked at in the pandemic. Now, we have to also note that this is the 30th straight month that we have seen unemployment rates of 4% or lower. The last time you see a streak that long was in the late 1960s. Now, when we unpack the number, again, 272,000 jobs added in the month. Economists had really only expected about this much, 190,000. So it beat estimates. And it's even more impressive when you consider where we saw the job gains. It was broad-based and in many sectors of the economy, healthcare, government, construction, all adding over 20,000 jobs in just the month. And leisure and hospitality, these are bars and restaurants, adding 42,000 jobs. This has been a big driver post-pandemic, Aaron.
So, you know, Brian, people hear that and they think, oh, we're doing pretty well. The economy is in pretty decent shape. And then there's still this inflation issue. Help people understand why inflation is still high.
Yeah, but I also want to add that there's something from this report that tells us the story on inflation might be getting a little bit better. So, yes, when you talk about inflation, the last measure that we got, which doesn't come from this report, it comes from another report, showed that prices are rising in this country at a yearly rate of 3.4%. Economists say a healthier number would be 2%. But here's the good news. Wages, which we did get from this report, how much do people make in terms of average hourly earnings? It rose year over year by 4.1%. 4.1%, that's higher than 3.4%. Wages have been outpacing inflation for a year now. That story was not the case in the 2 years following the pandemic. That dynamic switched in May of last year. That means that your income is growing at a faster pace than the price tags. That has been a positive development.
All right. I'm glad to hear that. I do want to ask you about Roaring Kitty, right? What is going on with Keith Gill? This is the meme stock investor that people know as Roaring Kitty. He hosted this live stream today. The stock ended it down almost, what, 40%? What's up?
Yeah, well, when we talk about what's happening with Keith Peele, we have to remember this is the main character behind the 2021 meme stock frenzy. He had targeted GameStop during that time as well and got many people online on Reddit to invest into the stock, and the stock popped. He's trying to do the same this week. Earlier this week, he posted on his Reddit thread on an account that's linked to him showing a huge multi-$100 million investment into GameStop. That shot the stock up to over $45 a share. It has since come back down. He had a live stream today at noon that was much anticipated. There wasn't really any news out of that, which might explain why the stock fell so precipitously, about 40% today, Aaron.
All right, Brian Chung for us today. Brian, appreciate it. Thank you. Well, President Biden making a forceful case for democracy as part of his big trip. This is one marking 80 years since D-Day. Listen.
As we gather here today, it's not just to honor those who showed such remarkable bravery on that day, June 6, 1944. It's to listen to the echoes. They're asking us to do our job, to protect freedom in our time, to defend democracy, to stand up aggression abroad and at home.
And while the president's speech is happening in France, it certainly carries political undertones here in the U.S., now just months away from the election. Kelly O'Donnell is traveling with the president and joins us now from Paris. Kelly, it's good to see you. Talk a little bit about the significance here of this speech from President Biden with this focus on democracy and defending democracy.
Well, Aaron, he has been talking about democracy for some time, but putting it in the context of D-Day, of the enormous sacrifice, the bravery, and the really extraordinary set of circumstances that happened here in France 80 years ago, it may be a way to unlock a new access point to some voters at home who think about the democracy talk as being only about the last election. The president putting it in a much larger historical context and asking the question many times over today. The veterans, some of whom have come back to France to mark this occasion, all about 100 years old now, what would they want in terms of the American people today standing up for the values of the United States, for freedom, to do their part in this moment, in the contemporary space. So part of it is for the president to talk about things that matter in the election, but to also do it as a statesman on the world stage with other leaders who were gathered here for these commemorations, and to try to sew together what history means along with the current events and the current challenges in this election season. Aaron?
Kelly, there was also this, I think, unusual moment, right? We had this bilateral meeting today with President Biden and President Zelensky of Ukraine. He publicly apologized to Zelensky there. Talk a little bit about that. What happened?
Well, that is about the protracted fight to get additional funding for the National Security Supplemental. And it did eventually get passed, and Speaker Johnson was a big part of that, but it had taken months. And of course, it was happening at a time when Israel was at war and in need of support, and Ukraine was losing ground against Russia. The president acknowledged the frustration that he felt and also pledged to President Zelensky of Ukraine in a meeting today that the U.S. will stand by him. Here's part of that exchange.
We're not going to walk away from you. I apologize for those weeks of not knowing what's going to happen in terms of funding, and because we had trouble getting the bill that we had to pass that had the money in it from some of our very conservative members who were holding it up. But we got it done finally.
And the president's been talking about the fact that the United States needs to be a dependable partner to allies like Ukraine. And that's part of the democracy theme, the standing for values, and the fighting against the aggression shown by Vladimir Putin and Russia. All of it tying together. Aaron?
All right, Kelly O'Donnell for us in Paris tonight. Kelly, good to see you. Thanks. Well, coming up, an animal tranquilizers linked to overdoses in the Midwest. What we know about this new, more potent and deadly kind of street drug. Plus, new body cam video from when the world's top golfer got arrested. What we're learning about those tense moments. Stick around. There is a verdict in that food program fraud trial where someone allegedly tried to bribe a juror. That decision in just a minute. First, though, Another powerful animal tranquilizer has been found in street drugs, and it's being linked to a recent spate of overdoses throughout the Midwest. The drug is not meant to be used by people, obviously, but it is being found in illicit opiates like fentanyl. State health officials in Michigan say it was found during toxicology testing of 3 people who died from a drug overdose. People who take the drug can remain sedated for at least 3 hours, and it's not just Michigan we're talking about here. This drug has been reported in Maryland, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Dr. John Torres is joining us now to talk to us about what is going on here. So first, let's understand what the drug does and how it sort of impacts the system.
You bet, Aaron. It's called medetomidine. It's an animal tranquilizer, like you mentioned, and in some cases, very, very selective cases, very controlled human cases, they've been used for human medicine. But what's happening right now is it's getting into the drug supply, and because it's getting into drug supply, it's causing these issues. They're mixing it with opioids, fentanyl, for example, and we know opioids can decrease your breathing rate, and that's one of the big concerns. Well, this does that as well, but this is not reversed by Narcan, which is the medicine we use for opioids, and like you mentioned, it can last for hours, and so it's difficult to treat these people outside the hospital setting, and there's no tests that people can use like fentanyl strips or anything else like that to detect it. And for some reason, again, it's moving from the Northeast into the Midwest. It's getting into the drug supply, and it's causing a lot of issues, a lot of concern.
Is there any understanding about how people are getting their hands on this stuff?
So if you look at the way things have progressed, remember, it was, cocaine and marijuana were adulterated. They were mixed with fentanyl, and fentanyl was the big issue with that. Then fentanyl became the main drug because of its cheapness and the ubiquitousness. The supply was, huge for fentanyl. And now fentanyl is being cut with xylazine, which is an animal tranquilizer as well. We call it the zombie drug because people were getting these sores that were hard to treat. Well, now comes this medetomidine, which is even stronger than xylazine, and they're using that as well. They think it's coming from Mexican cartels and U.S. gangs. It might be because it's cheaper and they can mix it in there, but also they think it extends the high, and that's what people are looking for when they get these drugs, and so they think that's the combination there. But it could be a deadly combination.
Yeah, it just sounds like some really risky stuff for people to be playing around with. Dr. John Torres, we appreciate it. Thank you. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, guilty verdicts delivered this afternoon in the Minnesota trial we've been telling you about, where someone tried to bribe a juror with that big bag of cash, $120,000. 5 people convicted here, 2 others acquitted, connected to a plot to steal millions of dollars meant to feed children during the pandemic. 2 jurors were dismissed in this case. It's still not clear where that bribe money came from. Number 2, Amanda Knox calling herself a victim in her first interview since an Italian court reconvicted her on slander charges. A court accuses her of falsely claiming a bar owner took part in the killing of Meredith Kircher. She faces no new jail time after already spending 4 years in prison before being exonerated in Kircher's death. Knox added that she plans to come back to Italy, quote, as many times as I have to fight against this injustice. Number 3, more than $63 million in cocaine now in the hands of the U.S. Coast Guard. You see it right here. The drugs were seized during a pair of incidents near Venezuela. In one of them, Coast Guard members say they had to act in self-defense, opening fire on the smugglers' ship and causing it to sink. Number 4, Olympic organizers unveiling a new display on the Eiffel Tower. You see it right there, the Olympic rings now mounted on the south side of the landmark. Each ring is made of recycled French steel. Opening ceremonies for the Games just 50 days away now. And number 5, Pat Sajak's final spin on the Wheel of Fortune. That's going to air tonight. He's been the show's host for the past 41 years. Ryan Seacrest set to succeed him. Vanna White will stay on as co-host for at least a few years more. Well, Louisville police now releasing the body cam footage of the moment Scottie Scheffler, the #1 golfer in the world, was arrested outside a golf club in Kentucky. Take a look at this. Listen.
Can you please help me?
Just keep going that way. Keep going that way.
Back up, or you
Stop.
Back up. I'm back. Get back.
Now, you can see him in the back of a police car right here, arrested after allegedly refusing to stop while on his way to the PGA Championship at the same time of a fatal accident that killed one man. Those charges were dropped. I want to bring in Antonia Hilton now. This new move from Louisville police is sort of an unusual twist in this case, because at one point, the understanding was that there wasn't any video, right?
That's right. And part of the reason we're able to see all of this now is because it's very clear there is going to be no trial. And that's because all of these charges have been dropped, including charges that were for second-degree assault of a police officer. Pretty serious charges there. And we also now know from authorities that they have called out the fact that the officer himself violated department policy by not having his body camera on in time to record this incident. And actually other officers on that very chaotic scene didn't have theirs on in time as well. You know, there's still a lot of context, frankly, missing from what's released today that would have told us a lot more about what incited all of this. But there are some images that are very telling, including some photographs that show some scratches on the officer's wrist, on his knee, a big hole in the back of his pants. And that's been a big topic of conversation because the officer described his pants as being beyond repair, something that Scheffler's fans have poked a lot of fun at, frankly, in the last couple weeks. And so, you know, it is that both sides are still maintaining their side of the story, frankly. The officer that he was dragged to the ground, that Scheffler accelerated, Scheffler saying that he was following instructions from someone else on the chaotic scene that day. He appears to be, frankly, moving forward at the moment, already playing golf in another tournament right now.
Which makes sense. I kind of get that, but there's still a lot of questions out there. It's some weird stuff going on for sure. Antonia Hilton, appreciate it. Thank you. But when we come back, what we know about the damage and the injuries after a small plane crashed in a Denver suburb. Plus, how a student's groundbreaking deal with Adidas is changing the game for high school athletes. Our Sam Brock spoke with him. That's in tonight's original. Stay with us. Students and staff in Philadelphia devastated by the sudden closure of their school. What's next for them in just a minute here. First, though, NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it's tough to read, watch, or listen to all of them, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, 4 people rushed to the hospital after a small plane crashed into a neighborhood outside Denver this morning. Parts of the plane thrown all over the street. You can see it right there. There was a fire, no homes impacted. Our Denver affiliate reporting the plane crashed about 15 minutes after takeoff. We know there were 2 adults and 2 kids on board. No word yet on their conditions. From our Northeast Bureau, police in Burlington, Vermont, apologizing after scarring students with a mock shooting demonstration. About 20 high schoolers were visiting a police station for a presentation. At one point, 3 department members came into the room with fake guns and making fake shooting sounds. No warning. Police say they discussed doing a simulation with the school, and apparently the district responded that they would give parents and students a heads up. The school district has not commented on this incident. From our Midwest Bureau, a deal hunter's dream, a 400-mile-long yard sale. It's open for business in Kentucky. That's basically the entire length of the state along Highway 68 there. Now, this is the 20th year they've done this event. It's a mix of estate sales and garage sales. Runs through Sunday if you're looking for some stuff. Well, tonight, heartbreak, anger, and not a lot of answers for students, faculty, and alumni from the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. Today, the school suddenly announcing it is shutting down, giving only a 1-week notice. Most of the students and faculty there learning of this news online or through the news before they heard anything from the school. The school posting this notice on its website last week saying UArts has been in a fragile financial state because of years of declining enrollments and revenues and increasing expenses. Students and staff there rallying on campus trying to prevent the school from shutting down. Students we spoke to say they are devastated by this situation happening at a school they love.
It just feels unexpected. It feels like nothing you can prepare for. It's like the thing that you love most just being immediately taken from you.
I was absolutely devastated. I was crushed. It was just the uncertainty of it all that was really just like scary.
All right, Tremaine Lee is following this one for us tonight. So, Tremaine, you have students and staff here who say they were in the dark about this coming. Now they're in the dark about what happens next. So what is the next move here?
I'll tell you what, Aaron, the university's board called this a deeply painful outcome, and certainly those in the campus community are feeling tossed in the wind. They've been devastated by this. This week there have been protests, lawsuit, even a GoFundMe for emergency housing for those young people who lost housing. But the university is saying that they are going to work with local institutions like Temple University and Drexel to maybe try to transition some of those students over to those campuses. But, you know, the pain can't be overstated. We spoke with one professor, Carolina Blatt, who said that, you know, everything was normal until it wasn't. Yeah. Take a listen.
Definitely shock and disbelief, but there were really no indications that our financial fragility was that severe. I was welcoming new students. I was writing new programs. So it was really it was almost like a parallel universe that didn't align with my experience.
So, I'm just thinking about this, right? I mean, we saw before the pandemic this sort of steadily decreasing number of college students in this country. The pandemic made it even worse when we started to see more of the students leaving colleges and not being able to get that college education in some cases. Is this part of a bigger trend that we're seeing in this country?
It's actually pretty shocking, Aaron. Over the last 10 years or so, the last decade, the numbers have fallen precipitously. Let me say this, in 2020, the fall of 2020, there were 15.9 million undergraduate students. In the fall of 2021, that's 15.4. Even the University of Arts, their enrollment has been declining from, in 2018, 1,900 students to the fall of 2022, 1,300 students. And also, it's not just about losing revenue and losing students. Schools are actually closing. So University of the Arts is one of 14 schools, colleges across the country closed this year. Last year, 33.
Wow, that's amazing to hear numbers that big. I mean, I wonder too, is all of this having an impact on alumni from UArts and the degrees that they have?
So far, there's no indication that it's affecting them in any real tangible way. But certainly these institutions, as we know, going to undergrad, the sense of pride and love for your community that helped raise you academically. So certainly there's some hurt feelings and a deep concern for the young people who've had their futures possibly dashed.
Yeah, you got to hope that this is a trend that will stabilize and hopefully reverse on some level. Tremaine Lee, we appreciate the reporting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, to tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching for you. This week, Florida entered states around the country that allow high school athletes to earn money off their name, image, and likeness, or NIL, after a unanimous decision by the Florida High School Athletic Association. Sam Brock sat down with one of the top football recruits in the country now to talk about what it means for high school athletics.
On a field filled with some of the nation's best high school football talent.
Wow. What a throw.
Vernell Brown does it again.
Vernell Brown III isn't just snaring touchdowns. Soon, he'll be snagging deals. After Florida just became the latest state, joining more than 30 others in the District of Columbia to allow high school athletes to cash in on their name, image, and likeness, or NIL, once it's ratified in July.
Do you feel like you're being part of something momentous now as you watch these rules change?
Absolutely. I think the NIL passing was a great thing for me, myself, and other high school athletes. Now we're able to kind of benefit off of our performances and the platform we've built. And
what does it change on a day-to-day basis, if anything?
Personally, I don't think it should change anything.
I don't go to clubs. I don't go to bars.
Not the prep work and not the purpose. But Brown and Adidas just unveiled a game-changing new deal.
The Addy 07 Class of 2024 was just named, and it's a selection of 7 of the most elite high school football athletes in the country.
That separates him among the country's most highly recruited athletes.
It's such a huge opportunity for him and the other 6 athletes that are involved in it.
And does that feel extraordinary to you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm extremely grateful for it.
Brown's father, Vernell Brown Jr., his manager and mentor for former Florida Gator turned Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson, and has seen NIL transform the sports world and open doors.
After all the sacrifices that families have made, how critical is that?
I think it's extremely critical. I think having this opportunity to kind of set yourself and then your family up, and it may not be necessarily financially. Obviously, there's a financial piece to it with NIL. However, I think just the platform, bringing more notice.
And the platform has exploded. The NFL Network now airs these games from OT7, the group providing a stage here for the sport's best players, where Brown's South Florida Express, or SFE, a pipeline for NFL talent, an all-star club, is competing and gaining exposure.
SFE's first NFL Network game, I have 4 touchdowns. So definitely a lot of good publicity from that. And like I said, just helping to build my brand.
So you picked a good time to crush.
Correct.
While the massive attention has raised the profile and earning power of high school athletes, some Florida coaches still have questions.
The fabric of college athletics has completely changed. I hope this doesn't
do that to the fabric of high school athletics.
There are guardrails in the Florida rules to keep it on track, from the products students can't endorse to no use of school equipment, names, or property. And athletes and their parents or guardians collectively have to agree on deals. While Brown's gridiron skill is still the driver, he says players can now take advantage of their abilities off the field, too.
Just like collegiate athletes and professional athletes put that time and hard work in, I think high school athletes put it in as well. So I definitely think there should be some benefit for them as well that pays off for their hard work and ultimately give us a financial jump start, you know, in life.
And Sam Brock is joining us now from Tampa. You know, Sam, on one hand, this obviously is a great opportunity for the kids involved here, right? But you did have that one coach saying that high school is kind of like your last chance to just be a kid, right? What's the bigger picture here? How could this impact high school sports programs across the country?
Well, they still are kids, Aaron, and they still are student athletes. But the reality is, if you have corporations that are willing to invest in these student athletes, want to promote them, want to make money off of them, why should the student athletes not also benefit? And that's where we are right now. The Pandora's box of this really started with college sports, and of course, now it has trickled down to the high school level as well. I would point out a couple of things. One, this doesn't kick off in Florida until 2024, 2025, so the next season could be a couple of months from now. But a lot of these deals we're talking about at the high school level are structured for 1 year, and then they basically expire once the athlete enrolls in college. The key here, though, Aaron, is preventing abuse. And there are multiple laws or parts of these bylaws that seek to do just that. Unlike college, you cannot have a collective where third-party boosters spend a lot of money to try to lure students in. That cannot happen at this level. And then the students themselves cannot even switch schools to sign another NIL deal unless they get an exemption. So there's all sorts of guardrails that are in place. But the reality right now is this is a wave of the future that we're seeing not just at the college level, but right here on the high school level, too.
All right.
Back to you.
Is there a game coming up here, Sam? Are you about to go in? What's happening?
I would think about it, except I don't want to have to show them how this is really done. So I'll just stay on the sidelines for now. What do you think?
Nicely played, my friend. Good to see you, Sam. Thanks.
Thanks.
Coming up, why stuff stolen from Taco Bell is ending up on the underground art market for like thousands of dollars. Stick around. When most people, when most people visit a Taco Bell, they're looking for a quick bite, right? Maybe a Crunch Wrap or Baja Blast, something like that. But for some people, Taco Bell is the perfect place to pull off an art heist. People are stealing decor right off the walls, and they're selling it for literally thousands of dollars. Laura Barrett has the story.
The Louvre, scene of the mysterious disappearance of the Mona Lisa.
They were the height of heists that rocked the art world. Way back in 1911, the Mona Lisa snatched from the halls of the Louvre.
The theft from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum was shockingly simple.
Fast forward to 1990.
Has it crossed your mind you may never see these works again?
Two men dressed as police officers brazenly walked out of Boston's Gardner Museum with 13 paintings, totaling $500 million. Today, another scandal unfolding, and it's hitting the art world right in the chalupa. That's right, artwork mysteriously gone missing. Not from a museum or gallery, but from, well, Taco Bell. They're now going for big bucks on the black market.
I kind of think of it as the GameStop of art heists.
Reports of paintings disappearing from the franchises started in 2015, more than a decade after artist Mark T. Smith had been commissioned to create them.
It's kind of comical in a way. The way it was framed, it was like this great art heist, you know, and it just had like the Thomas Crown affair.
Smith is an accomplished painter, shown in galleries across the country, and has done work for campaigns like Absolute Vodka and the 2008 Olympics, work that fans wanted to collect. The Taco Bell art, though?
I wasn't expecting that with Taco Bell, frankly, but it's a nice endorsement. It's not like somebody giving you a compliment at a show of your work. It's just more authentic than that way.
The pieces now selling on eBay are mere copies of Smith's original work. And yet, look at this post for $10,000.
I think in an age of social media, it's definitely bragging rights, and that's a big part of it. It's easier to fence something that's a print rather than an original. Not that I would know personally.
We spoke with one eBay seller who said he found the prints for sale on Facebook and recognized them instantly.
It was like
like something triggered inside of me. I'm like, oh my God, I totally remember those. Like, iconic. These things are iconic, man. Nostalgia wins every time.
It turns out the old saying is true, but with a twist. Art is in the eye of the taco holder.
Maura Barrett is joining us now. It's a little weird. You listen to Smith, right? To Mark T. Smith, the artist here, and he seems to sort of endorse it or at least not be bothered by it. Is he not upset that people are stealing his art, committing crime to get his art?
Well, I mean, his point of view is that it's creating buzz. It's getting people talking. They're remembering this nostalgia that this art's been in Taco Bell's for 20 plus years. He also made a point when we interviewed him that he wanted to partner with Taco Bell and other clients like this because he usually does work that shows up in galleries that only a small percentage of people get to see. He wanted to put something on the public that more people would get to see, get to appreciate real art in the public. And so now that this trend is ongoing, he sees it as a further appreciation of sorts.
Okay, I get it. I mean, I guess, you know, what is it? No, only bad press is no press or no, something like that. I guess it's out
All press
there.
is good press. There it is.
That makes a lot more sense. Maura Barrett, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, still to come, the alleged inspiration behind Baby Reindeer suing Netflix for a ton of money. How the streamer is responding. Next. Well, Netflix says it's going to fight a massive lawsuit involving the popular series Baby Reindeer. A woman sued, saying she was ID'd online as the basis for the character of a stalker on that show. Netflix saying in a statement, "We intend to defend this matter vigorously and to stand by Richard Gadd's right to tell his story." Gadd is the creator and star of this series, who says it's based off of true events from his own life. Fiona Harvey, seen here in an interview with Piers Morgan, is seeking $170 million because of a portrayal she says was inaccurate in that show. The lawsuit says she is, quote, an innocent woman defamed at a magnitude and scale without precedent. Here's Matt Bradley.
So this is kind of the news that we've all been waiting for when it comes to Baby Reindeer, which has been an absolute sensation here in the UK. I mean, it gets far more attention than the Royals or the elections that are coming up. This is a game changer, and everybody, when you see this show, you think somebody's going to get sued. And sure enough, that's exactly what seems to be happening. $170 million on the part of the woman who claims to be the woman who is portrayed in this show. Now, she says that the show has misportrayed her as being a violent criminal. She says she never spent time in jail. She never committed criminal assault. The show, it sounds like, wasn't saying that. And now the show does say that this is based on a true story, but one that isn't necessarily based on individual facts or details. This is what you do when you present a television show like that that is based on a true story. However, internet sleuths, and we can always rely on them, they managed to find this woman and outed her, and she has not been shy, consistent with the character that's portrayed in the show. She went on Piers Morgan to give an interview just a couple of weeks ago. That got a lot of eyeballs as well. And again, this is something that a lot of British people are watching because it takes place here in London. Now, we heard from the show's creator, Mr. Gadd. He did say that if they had been planning on doing a truthful story, they would have done a truthful story and named names. So he's saying they did everything they possibly could to keep this woman from the spotlight. But at the end of the day, it looks as though she was discovered. These things are inevitable. And she's very, very angry. And if you've ever watched the show, you can tell why.
All right, that is a wrap for this hour. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Aaron Gilchrist in for Hallie Jackson, and coverage continues right now. And as we begin this new hour tonight with the record-shattering heat wave in the West, with new highs being set there and more expected this weekend in other parts of the country, too, we're going to be live in Phoenix for you, talking to officials about how people are coping with this extreme heat. And then more emotional testimony in the Hunter Biden case, his daughter Naomi taking the stand, and the big question for next week, will he testify in his own defense? We're live outside the courthouse. And the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs speaking out tonight after one of their own went into cardiac arrest in a team meeting, the latest on his recovery. Plus, the new street drug, our team's reporting on how a dangerous animal sedative is making its way into the illegal drug supply with deadly consequences. And in tonight's original, Florida saying high school athletes can profit off of their name, image, and likeness We sit down with one athlete who just inked a six-figure deal. Hey, everybody, I'm Aaron Gilchrist in for Hallie tonight. And right now, millions are facing record-setting heat from California to Florida. Temperatures soaring well into triple digits in the country's first major heat wave of the year. Take a look at some of the numbers here. Death Valley, 122 degrees. Phoenix breaking another heat record yesterday. Same goes for Las Vegas. It came earlier than ever in that city as well. 15 million people under heat alerts now under that heat dome out west. The official start of summer still 2 weeks away, but about half of Arizona and Nevada already under excessive heat alerts. We can't forget about the South either. Florida, people there sweltering in super high heat right now, and it's only expected to get worse. This weekend will feel as hot as 110 degrees in parts of Florida. You see some brush fires there breaking out in that state already. This is all coming right after storms hit Florida overnight, killing a 14-year-old girl when a tree fell onto the roof of a car she was in. That's according to Florida Highway Patrol. You're looking at some of the aftermath there. I want to bring in Liz Kreutz now. She's in Phoenix for us tonight. Liz, you've been there for a couple of days. Paint a picture for us here. How bad is it really, and how are people dealing with it?
Yeah, hey, Aaron. I mean, it's definitely hot. 113 degrees yesterday, triple-digit temperatures right now and just going up. And folks here, they're used to this heat. It is the desert, but it's just something we're seeing early, and it comes off a really deadly year last year. 645 people died in Maricopa County, where Phoenix is alone last year from heat-related complications. And it was interesting. I spoke to an expert in extreme heat today from the Arizona State University, and she said not only should we be paying attention to the highs every day, but the low. It was the lowest it got overnight was 87 degrees here in Phoenix. And that takes a huge toll on folks financially because then they are cranking up their air conditioning 24/7 in their home. I spoke to a 30-year-old woman who says she basically budgets all year now to be able to have money to keep the air on in her home at night. She last summer said she kept her thermostat at 83 degrees in order to keep costs low. That was the bearable temperature she realized she could stand. Here's what she had to tell me.
So what has it been like just with the massive heat wave that we saw last year coming into this year?
Basically, we were managing the heat last year because it was very expensive. And like, this is a tiny house. It's only 940 square feet, but it was still costing me on the high end, $220 per month to cool it.
Because of that, she now recently just paid $4,000 to have her home retrofitted to be able to cool it down and maybe lower the cost of her electricity bill. But that's just another big impact people are bracing for as we enter summer, Aaron.
We've mentioned some of the fires that have been going on out there. Bring us up to speed on that.
Right, so there is the Bravo fire that's burning here in Arizona, and that one is just west of Flagstaff. Right now, it's burned about 1,000 acres at last check, 0% contained, although it's likely that the firefighters have made some progress on it. And it just speaks to the fact that when we have such hots and dries, it just increases the fire danger out west here, which is, of course, a huge concern. We saw the Corral fire earlier this week in Northern California. We've seen several brush fires and grass fires across California, Nevada, Arizona over the past few days that firefighters are battling. So that's going to be another issue, of course, as we head into the summer months. Typical fire season, and we're coming off 2 years of record rainfall in California, which only led to more brush that's ripe for fires. Aaron.
And it's so early in the summer, Liz. I mean, we talk about the fact that we're just a week into the month of June. What are officials saying about what they anticipate, what's to come there, and how folks can be ready for it?
Yeah, I mean, just today, right now, where we are is a trailhead here in Phoenix, and the city has closed all of the trailheads and all the trails around here right now to tell people, you know, stay inside, don't go hiking. Interestingly, we've seen a few people come and go, but these are folks who say that they've lived here a while, they're comfortable with this heat. We did see, as we've been mentioning, that fire officials are now doing these mobile ice baths, essentially, where their firefighters are going to be driving around with buckets of ice, that if they see someone dealing or respond to someone dealing with heat stroke or a heat emergency, they'll be able to immediately immerse them in ice. And they were telling us that they can drastically lower someone's body temperature. Almost immediately, they were able to save someone's life who was 112 degrees at that time and lower their body temperature to save their life by the time they got to the hospital, Aaron.
Wow, it's going to be a long summer for sure. Liz Kreutz for us in Phoenix tonight. Liz, good to see you. Thank you. Well, one of the big questions we're tracking for you this weekend is, will the president's only living son take the stand in his own defense on Monday as his historic trial winds down? You're looking at Hunter Biden here, leaving the courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware, just a few hours ago. They wrapped up early today because the defense is trying to decide what they're going to do about their last witness, a witness believed to be Hunter Biden himself. Remember, he's facing 3 charges here tied to the possession of a gun while using narcotics back in 2018. And that's after some emotional testimony from his oldest daughter. During the defense's questioning, she told the jury that during that time period, her dad seemed good, hopeful even. The president's son getting emotional as his daughter spoke, wiping away tears. But her testimony taking a turn during the cross-examination. The prosecutor here, Leo Wise, asking Naomi if she ever saw her father use drugs. She said she had not. Wise made that point that she wouldn't know what it would look like if her father was using drugs. Naomi responding there, I guess not. He also asked her about text messages with her dad on October 18th, 2018, 6 days after Hunter Biden bought the gun at the center of this case. Wise says the text read, I'm really sorry, Dad. I can't take this. I don't know what to say. I just miss you and want to hang out with you. Now, Hunter responding with, I'm sorry I've been so unreachable. It's not fair to you. That's according to Wise. The First Lady flying back from Normandy, France, where the president has been speaking to be in court to support her son. One more day here. This case is moving pretty fast here. The prosecution rested its case earlier today. We expect the defense to rest its case on Monday. And after that, Hunter Biden's fate goes into the hands of the jury in this case. Mike Memoli outside the courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware for us. And Kristen Gibbons-Fedden has our legal breakdown here in just a second. Mike, at one point during Naomi Biden's testimony, the First Lady seemed a little bit uncomfortable, emotional. We know emotions were running high. The impact of the witness was supposed to have for the defense here may not have landed as powerfully maybe as they had hoped, especially once the prosecution came in here. Sum up the day for us.
Yeah, well, Aaron, we had 3 days of witnesses called by the prosecution that all helped them build their case that Hunter Biden was indeed addicted to drugs and continued to be using drugs at the time he purchased that gun and attested on the government form that he was not an addict, which would be a violation of law. So when things moved to the defense side today, as they began to call their own witnesses, there was a hope on the part of the Biden team that they could begin to make the counter-argument that Hunter Biden was on a path to recovery. Well, the first 2 witnesses that Abby Lowell, the defense attorney, called were actually gun shop employees, and they didn't serve the purpose necessarily. They were combative. They were trying to counter the questioning from Abby Lowell about whether the paperwork was filled out properly or not. Then that dramatic moment when the Hunter Biden's eldest daughter, Naomi, took the stand. And the questioning initially was proving really what the defendant wanted to prove, which was that he was on a path to recovery. They had spent some good time together that summer in Los Angeles. Naomi Biden saying that her father was as clear as she had seen him since the death of her uncle 3 years before. She also testified that the car that she had borrowed from her father, which was where the gun was later discovered by Hallie Biden, Beau Biden's widow, did not show any signs of drug paraphernalia. But when the prosecution had their chance for some cross-examination, things got very difficult. They were very tough with Naomi Biden, it must be said. And she was confronted with these very difficult texts that seemed to indicate, including one involving the name Frankie, somebody who we know from prior testimony was a known drug dealer that Hunter would be in contact with from time to time in New York, that she did not seem frankly prepared for. And it did raise again the possibility that, in fact, he had been abusing drugs during this time period. So that really did seem to lead to a course correction on the part of the defense team. They had originally planned to call President Biden's brother, James Biden. They decided not to call him, break for the weekend. And now the question is, will we hear from Hunter Biden testifying in his own defense on Monday? We may not know until Monday, Aaron.
But there's a lot to think about as it relates to that, right? And you are our sort of authority here at NBC News when it comes to the Biden family in a lot of ways. We heard the president affirm yesterday in this interview with ABC News that he would not pardon his son if he's convicted. Now we have the potential for his son to take the stand. Talk a little bit about how this is all sort of swirling in Biden world and some of the considerations potentially that may be going on ahead of a Monday last witness.
Well, certainly Hunter Biden does believe that he can be his own strongest witness. We've seen in the past the way he has confronted House Republicans on Capitol Hill when they've been challenging him to testify, the strong statement he made on his own behalf outside of the Capitol steps. So there is certainly precedent here for Hunter Biden believing that he can make a case for himself. The real question is, what does the jury think at this moment? The lawyers for both sides are trying to read the jury's reaction over the course of these last 4 days. And so part of the calculation on the part of Hunter's defense team will be, do they think that there's a case he can help make to continue to make a sympathetic case for himself that might win the jury over, that he can state his state of mind at the time he purchased the gun, that he did believe he was not an addict at that moment. Of course, on the part of his father, this is such a difficult moment, right? You see that in that interview with ABC News. He has the power as the president of the United States to pardon his son, to lift this burden potentially not just on him, but on the entire family, but he's choosing not to do so. It really speaks to what has really been a vexing question that the family, I'm told, is asking itself at this time. Would Hunter be in this situation if had his father not run for president? Would he be in the situation if his father was not seeking re-election? It's a difficult one, and it speaks to the dynamic we've seen in the courtroom all week, Aaron.
All right, Mike Memoli for us in Wilmington, Delaware tonight. Mike, thank you. I want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Kristen Gibbons-Fedden now. And I think, Kristen, Mike sort of teed us up here nicely with this idea of what's going on in the jury's minds, right? We know that the intent with Naomi Biden's testimony was to build this reasonable doubt that we hear about in trials like this. What's your read on how effective the defense has been to this point?
I think that the beginning of her testimony, it was very effective, right? She said she was hopeful, as Mike pointed out, and she presented extremely well. She showed, you know, just this picture of a recovering dad. And so that really undermined the prosecution. But man, Aaron, that cross-examination was difficult, right? Pointing out that message. And I think it was really heartfelt, that text message that you guys showed in the beginning of the segment, talking about, I'm sorry, Daddy, I can't take this. And that was right in October, right when the relevant timeline is at issue. So while I think putting her on really gave a humanity to this case, showed Hunter Biden as a father and someone that the jury could really empathize with, because most people have had addiction touch them in some way, shape, or form. But I think her cross-examination really was effective for the prosecution, because it really undermined the defense in this case, which is, yes, he was an addict, but he was not an addict on the day that he filled out that form.
And Kristen, you know, we could see Hunter Biden on the stand, as we've been saying, right? It's not typical maybe to see a defendant testify in their own case. What's your read on that? I mean, talk a little bit about the risk here of the defense putting Hunter Biden on the stand.
Yeah, Aaron, you know, as you pointed out, it is not typical. And the reason it's not typical is because all defendants are cloaked with the presumption of innocence. They don't have to prove or say anything. It is the burden on the prosecution to prove any and all elements of any charged offense beyond a reasonable doubt. But in this particular case, whether or not he filled out that application in a false matter is really the crux and the pivotal question that the jurors have to answer. So if Hunter Biden could get on that stand and just answer that question, he absolutely should testify. And as Mike pointed out, he has experience testifying in an eloquent manner. But in this case, given the text messages, given the memoir, it is not something that it would be recommended, I think, by any defense attorney, because the cross-examination would be horrific for him. And it would truly show that picture and that pattern of addiction, which is exactly painting in the prosecution's favor.
All right, Kristen Gibbons-Fedden with us tonight. Kristen, we appreciate the perspective. Thank you. All right, I want to turn to some breaking news into us now. NBC News exclusively reporting that Harvey Weinstein filed an appeal to overturn his Los Angeles rape conviction. That's weeks after his New York conviction was overturned. I want to bring in Chloe Malas now, who just broke this story for us. So bring us up to speed here, Chloe. Why this appeal now?
You know, I just actually got off the phone with Harvey Weinstein's criminal attorney, Jennifer Bongine, and she just says that his 2022 trial, she says, in her words, it was a mess, that they were not able to provide the necessary evidence, that it was not a fair trial, and they are seeking officially. Now, we had heard for a while that they were going to do this, but they're now officially seeking a new trial. Just moments ago, NBC News has obtained the court documents that shows exactly the grounds on which they are appealing. And they also claim that they have information about this alleged incident that he was convicted on that actually disproves where this woman was on that night, this Jane Doe. You know, this is all coming, though, just weeks after his New York criminal conviction was overturned.
Wow, a lot of moving parts on this, and this...
And you know, we could see a new trial in New York. So Harvey Weinstein, I just want to put this into perspective for everybody. If Harvey Weinstein was not convicted in Los Angeles because his New York conviction was overturned just recently, he would be a free man today. And so now he's waiting in Rikers for the New York District Attorney to potentially retry him again. They have not set a new trial date, but in theory, this is how it's going to go. He's going to be at Rikers through the summer, and in the fall, you might see a trial date set and Harvey Weinstein quite quickly be retried again. If he is found not guilty, then he would go to LA, where then he starts serving that sentence, which is about 16-year sentence there, 16 or 19-year sentence. It's been a long day. And so he would then start serving that sentence while waiting on this potential appeal. And then, I mean, his attorney tells me she believes that one day Harvey Weinstein is going to walk a free man. She believes that if he is granted an appeal, if he is granted a new trial in Los Angeles, that this new evidence and what they have, the new trial, he'll walk a free man. But again, he's actually in really bad health. He's getting older, and the likelihood of him actually being able to see these things through, it's not like he has time on his hand either.
Wow, so many variables, so many if-thens in this whole story with him. Going to be interesting to watch which way it plays out on both coasts now.
Yes.
Chloe Malas, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, tonight, Kansas City Chiefs defensive lineman BJ Thompson awake and alert. That's after having a seizure and going into cardiac arrest during a team meeting. That's according to Thompson's agent. The Super Bowl champs back on the field today without Thompson, of course, as big-name players and top members of the coaching staff spoke about what happened. Listen.
That's a tough situation. I've had, we've been through a couple of those before in my time, and it's never fun. Thank goodness, though. I mean, if it had to happen, no better place than right here, where you have the support unit that knows what to do.
And you might expect it. I mean, parallels are being drawn now to the Buffalo Bills' Damar Hamlin, who collapsed on the field. That was 2 seasons ago. He suffered cardiac arrest, recovered thanks to the work of the medical teams that treated him there. I want to bring in Shaquille Brewster on this now. And Shaq, walk us through what more we learned about this emergency today.
Hi there, Aaron. Well, look, we got a sense today of exactly what happened and really how scary this was for everyone involved. The head athletic trainer for the Kansas City Chiefs came out and talked about how this took place during a team meeting with the special teams unit. So it wasn't on the field. It wasn't the result of any collision. And he said that Thompson suffered from a seizure, and that's when you had a teammate run out, immediately grab some of the medical staff, and then listen to him describe what happened after that.
We tried to stabilize BJ and then put him on the floor while he was still seizing, and then he went into cardiac arrest. So our team of that group of people provided CPR for him. He had 1 AED shock and came back, so he was only in cardiac arrest for probably less than a minute and a half. Our players, our security staff, everybody involved, coaches, staff, they were phenomenal in handling the crisis.
He was heavily sedated overnight, also placed on a ventilator. Again, right now he is doing well. He's alert. He's stable. But you get a sense of exactly how scary that was. And we also learned in that press conference that the NFL mandates emergency training for teams to essentially practice situations just like this. And the head athletic trainer saying that it was on Monday when the team last had this practice. Clearly, it had some impact.
Yeah, maybe one of the most important drills these players can actually go through in the course of doing this kind of work. We do have these 2 cases now, though, right? We've got Thompson, we got Damar Hamlin we talked about. Are the NFL or other players saying anything about this kind of thing happening to 2 players in the league now?
Not necessarily in terms of whether or not this is a pattern or something to be concerned about. Of course, you have the team sending its thoughts and prayers to BJ Thompson. And I want you to listen to what we heard from one of the players when he was asked about how he's feeling emotionally. What are they thinking after witnessing and experiencing one of their teammates going through this?
I'm just glad to see that he's doing good, you know, and when you have a guy go down like that, you know, you never want that for anyone. And, you know, it's hard, but I will say this, he was, you know, we're blessed to have such great teammates and athletic trainers that helped him, and we're able and ready for that situation.
The coach again said that he experienced something similar before, something that wasn't completely uncommon, but that the team had a meeting right after this medical emergency, but then he had all the players go home. They canceled that voluntary practice that was set to take place yesterday. They moved it to today. Of course, we saw players back on the field, and they were potentially boosted by what was relatively good news. The fact that, again, Thompson is alert, he's responsive, and he is making improvement.
Yeah, some pretty good news for sure. Shaquille Brewster for us tonight. Thank you, Shaq.
You got
some new data out today showing the economy added way more jobs than expected last month, and that could actually be bad news for folks who are hoping for an interest rate cut soon. The Fed could be looking for things to slow down more before thinking about a cut. We'll find out more about that when they meet next week. The president, though, touting the numbers, saying, quote, the great American comeback continues, but congressional Republicans have a different vision, one that puts billionaires and special interests first. Brian Chung joins me now. So, Brian, job growth appears to have held steady when you compare it to last month here. What do these numbers say about the current state of our economy?
Yeah, Aaron, and we got to be careful because sometimes you get the political goggles, sometimes you get the investor goggles as well. But we just have to remember what's good for Main Street, right? And it's unemployment remaining low and adding jobs to this economy. So, yes, the unemployment rate did catch some attention because it rose to 4%. We haven't seen a 4 number on the unemployment rate since January of 2022. But look, this is the chart historically. And you can see, even, yes, though it ticked up to 4%, it is still historically low and much lower than the 15% that it peaked at in the pandemic. Now, we have to also note that this is the 30th straight month that we have seen unemployment rates of 4% or lower. The last time you see a streak that long was in the late 1960s. Now, when we unpack the number, again, 272,000 jobs added in the month. Economists had really only expected about this much, 190,000. So it beat estimates. And it's even more impressive when you consider where we saw the job gains. It was broad-based and in many sectors of the economy, healthcare, government, construction, all adding over 20,000 jobs in just the month. And leisure and hospitality, these are bars and restaurants, adding 42,000 jobs. This has been a big driver post-pandemic, Aaron.
So, you know, Brian, people hear that and they think, oh, we're doing pretty well. The economy is in pretty decent shape. And then there's still this inflation issue. Help people understand why inflation is still high.
Yeah, but I also want to add that there's something from this report that tells us the story on inflation might be getting a little bit better. So, yes, when you talk about inflation, the last measure that we got, which doesn't come from this report, it comes from another report, showed that prices are rising in this country at a yearly rate of 3.4%. Economists say a healthier number would be 2%. But here's the good news. Wages, which we did get from this report, how much did people make in terms of average hourly earnings? It rose year over year by 4.1%. 4.1%, that's higher than 3.4%. Wages have been outpacing inflation for a year now. That story was not the case in the 2 years following the pandemic. That dynamic switched in May of last year. That means that your income is growing at a faster pace than the price tags. That has been a positive development.
All right, I'm glad to hear that. I do want to ask you about Roaring Kitty, right? What is going on with Keith Gill? This is the meme stock investor that people know as Roaring Kitty. He hosted this live stream today. The stock ended down almost, 40%? What's up?
Yeah, well, when we talk about what's happening with Keith Gill, we have to remember this is the main character behind the 2021 meme stock frenzy. He had targeted GameStop during that time as well and got many people online on Reddit to invest into the stock, and the stock popped. He's trying to do the same this week. Earlier this week, he posted on his Reddit thread on an account that's linked to him showing a huge multi-$100 million investment into GameStop. That shot the stock up to over $45 a share. It has since come back down. He had a live stream today at noon that was much anticipated. There wasn't really any news out of that, which might explain why the stock fell so precipitously, about 40% today, Aaron.
All right, Brian Chung for us today. Brian, appreciate it. Thank you. President Biden making a forceful case for democracy as part of his big trip to France, marking the 80 years since D-Day. Listen.
As we gather here today
It's not just to honor those who showed such remarkable bravery on that day, June 6, 1944. It's to listen to the echoes. They're asking us to do our job, to protect freedom in our time, to defend democracy, to stand up aggression abroad and at home.
And while the president's speech is coming from France, it certainly carries political undertones here in the U.S., now just months away from Election Day. Kelly O'Donnell is traveling with the president and joins me now. Kelly, it's good to see you. Talk a little bit about the significance here of this speech from President Biden with this focus on democracy and defending democracy.
Well, Aaron, he has been talking about democracy for some time, but putting it in the context of D-Day, of the enormous sacrifice, the bravery, and the really extraordinary set of circumstances that happened here in France 80 years ago, it may be a way to unlock a new access point to some voters at home who think about the democracy talk as being only about the last election. The president putting it in a much larger historical context and asking the question many times over today. The veterans, some of whom have come back to France to mark this occasion, all about 100 years old now, what would they want in terms of the American people today standing up for the values of the United States, for freedom, to do their part in this moment, in the contemporary space. So part of it is for the president to talk about things that matter in the election, but to also do it as a statesman on the world stage with other leaders who were gathered here for these commemorations, and to try to sew together what history means along with the current events and the current challenges in this election season. Aaron?
Kelly, there was also this, I think, unusual moment, right? We had this bilateral meeting today with President Biden and President Zelensky of Ukraine. He publicly apologized to Zelensky there. Talk a little bit about that. What happened?
Well, that is about the protracted fight to get additional funding for the National Security Supplemental. And it did eventually get passed, and Speaker Johnson was a big part of that, but it had taken months. And of course, it was happening at a time when Israel was at war and in need of support, and Ukraine was losing ground against Russia. The president acknowledged the frustration that he felt and also pledged to President Zelensky of Ukraine in a meeting today that the U.S. will stand by him. Here's part of that exchange.
We're not going to walk away from you. I apologize for those weeks of not knowing what's going to happen in terms of funding, because we had trouble getting the bill that we had to pass that had the money in it from some of our very conservative members who were holding it up. But we got it done finally.
And the president's been talking about the fact that the United States needs to be a dependable partner to allies like Ukraine. And that's part of the democracy theme, the standing for values, and the fighting against the aggression shown by Vladimir Putin and Russia. All of it tying together. Aaron?
All right, Kelly O'Donnell for us in Paris tonight. Kelly, good to see you. Thanks. And still ahead this hour, lifting the veil on the Supreme Court. Sort of. The unique gifts we're learning about from the justices' just released disclosure reports. Plus, this Lego haul is not part of a toy drive. How police track down thousands of stolen building kits. Health officials in Mexico easing fears about bird flu in that country. We'll explain in the 5 things. First, though, another powerful animal tranquilizer has been found in street drugs, and it's being linked to a recent spate of overdoses throughout the Midwest. These drugs, the drug is not meant to be used by people, obviously, but it's being found in illicit opiates like fentanyl. State officials from the health department in Michigan saying it was found during toxicology testing for 3 people who died from a drug overdose. People who take this drug can remain sedated for at least 3 hours, and it's not just Michigan we're talking about here. This drug has been reported in Maryland, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Dr. John Torres joins me now. First, let's understand what the drug does and how it sort of impacts the system.
You bet, Aaron. It's called medetomidine. It's an animal tranquilizer, like you mentioned, and in some cases, very, very selective cases, very controlled human cases, they've been used for human medicine. But what's happening right now is it's getting into the drug supply, and because it's getting into the drug supply, it's causing these issues. They're mixing it with opioids, fentanyl, for example, and we know opioids can decrease your breathing rate, and that's one of the big concerns. Well, this does that as well, but this is not reversed by Narcan, which is the medicine we use for opioids. And like you mentioned, it can last for hours, and so it's difficult to treat these people outside the hospital setting, and there's no tests that people can use like fentanyl strips or anything else like that to detect it. And for some reason, again, it's moving from the Northeast into the Midwest. It's getting into the drug supply, and it's causing a lot of issues, a lot of concern.
Is there any understanding about how people are getting their hands on this stuff?
So if you look at the way things have progressed, remember, it was, cocaine and marijuana were adulterated. They were mixed with fentanyl, and fentanyl was the big issue with that. Then fentanyl became the main drug because of its cheapness and the ubiquitousness. The supply was, huge for fentanyl. And now fentanyl is being cut with xylazine, which is an animal tranquilizer as well. We called it the zombie drug because people were getting these sores that were hard to treat. Well, now comes this medetomidine, which is even stronger than xylazine, and they're using that as well. They think it's coming from Mexican cartels and U.S. gangs. It might be because it's cheaper and they can mix it in there, but also they think it extends the high, and that's what people are looking for when they get these drugs, and so they think that's the combination there. But it could be a deadly combination.
Yeah, it just sounds like some really risky stuff for people to be playing around with. Dr. John Torres, we appreciate it. Thank you. All right, let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a New Jersey businessman testifying today that he bribed Senator Bob Menendez, telling a jury that he gave the lawmaker's wife a Mercedes in exchange for his influence and that the wife accepted. The businessman pleaded guilty back in March and is cooperating with prosecutors in this case. Both the Menendezes have pleaded not guilty. Number 2, Mexico saying that the man who got bird flu there and died actually died because of chronic diseases and not the bird flu itself. Remember, earlier this week, the World Health Organization reported the first lab-confirmed human case of a certain kind of bird flu in that country. The WHO saying today that experts are still investigating whether he was infected by a person or through animal contact. Number 3, Supreme Court justices' annual financial disclosures came out today. Justice Clarence Thomas reporting a 2019 trip to Bali with a billionaire friend, and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson also reporting that she got $3,700 worth of concert tickets from Beyonce, as well as a nearly $900,000 advance for her upcoming book. Number 4, Olympic organizers unveiling a new display on the Eiffel Tower. Take a look. The Olympic rings now mounted on the south side of that landmark. Each ring is made of recycled French steel. The opening ceremony for the Games in Paris, 50 days away now. Number 5, 2 people arrested after almost 3,000 boxes of stolen Legos were found in a California home. This is part of what police are calling a Lego theft ring that's been going on since last year, apparently. It's led to a months-long investigation. Each of the boxes here ranging in price from $20 to $1,000. One of the suspects was charged with organized retail theft and the other with grand theft. Louisville police now releasing the body cam footage of the moment Scottie Scheffler, the #1 golfer in the world, was arrested outside a golf club in Kentucky. Listen to some of the tense moments here.
Can you please help me?
Just keep going that way. Keep going that way.
Back up, or you in the
back up.
I'm back. Get back.
Go.
Now, you can see him in the back of a police car right here, arrested after allegedly refusing to stop while on his way to the PGA Championship at the same time of a fatal accident that killed one man. Those charges were dropped. Antonia Hilton joins me now. This new move from Louisville police is sort of an unusual twist in this case because at one point the understanding was that there wasn't any video, right?
That's right. And part of the reason we're able to see all of this now is because it's very clear there is going to be no trial. And that's because all of these charges have been dropped, including charges that were for a second-degree assault of a police officer, pretty serious charges there. And we also now know from authorities that they have called out the fact that the officer himself violated department policy by not having his body camera on in time to record this incident. And actually other officers on that very chaotic scene didn't have theirs on in time as well. well. You know, there's still a lot of context, frankly, missing from what's released today that would have told us a lot more about what incited all of this. But there are some images that are very telling, including some photographs that show some scratches on the officer's wrist, on his knee, a big hole in the back of his pants. And that's been a big topic of conversation because the officer described his pants as being beyond repair, something that Scheffler's fans have poked a lot of fun at, frankly, in the last couple weeks. And so, you know, it is that both sides are still maintaining their side of the story, frankly. The officer that he was dragged to the ground, that Scheffler accelerated, Scheffler saying that he was following instructions from someone else on the chaotic scene that day. He appears to be, frankly, moving forward at the moment, already playing golf in another tournament right now.
Which makes sense. I kind of get that, but there's still a lot of questions out there. It's some weird stuff going on for sure. Antonia Hilton, appreciate it. Thank you. And coming up, shock and frustration after a Philadelphia university closes its doors after 150 years. Why students and staff say they were completely caught off guard. Plus, the frantic search for a missing journalist and doctor, what we know about where he was last seen. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it's tough to read, watch, or listen to all of them, our teams around the world have done it for you in a segment we call The Global. In Romania, at least 15 people hurt by an explosion at a home improvement store. You can see it here, the building's facade blown out there, debris everywhere. A lot of the victims are still in the hospital, apparently, some of them in serious condition after suffering burns. Authorities are still trying to figure out what caused that explosion. In Denmark, police arresting a man for allegedly assaulting the prime minister. Her office says that, in a statement, says that she is shocked by the incident, but walked away from it unharmed. This assault comes 2 days before the Danish people go to the polls for the EU election. Also out of Europe, a famous British TV presenter, Dr. Michael Mosley, still missing in Greece after 48 hours. The doctor and his wife went on vacation when he suddenly disappeared while he was out for a walk. Authorities started a rescue operation using drones and boats trying to search the area for him. Well, tonight, heartbreak and anger, and not a lot of answers for students, faculty, and alumni from the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. Today, the school suddenly announcing it is shutting down, giving only a 1-week notice. Most of the folks from that university, students and faculty there, learning this news online or through news reports before they heard anything from school officials. The school posting this notice on its website last week saying UArts has been in a fragile financial state because of years of declining enrollments and revenues and increasing expenses. Now, students and staff rallied on campus there trying to prevent the school from shutting down. Students we spoke to say they are devastated by this situation happening at the school they love.
It just feels unexpected. It feels like nothing you can prepare for. It's like the thing that you love most just being immediately taken from you.
I was absolutely devastated. I was crushed. It was just the uncertainty of it all that was really just like scary.
All right, Tremaine Lee is following this one for us tonight. So, Tremaine, you have students and staff here who say they were in the dark about this coming. Now they're in the dark about what happens next. So what is the next move here?
I'll tell you what, Aaron, the university's board called this a deeply painful outcome, and certainly those in the campus community are feeling tossed in the wind. They've been devastated by this. This week there have been protests, lawsuit, even a GoFundMe for emergency housing for those young people who lost housing. But the university is saying that they are going to work with local institutions like Temple University and Drexel to maybe try to transition some of those students over to those campuses. But, you know, the pain can't be overstated. We spoke with one professor, Carolina Blatt, who said that, you know, everything was normal until it wasn't. Yeah. Take a listen.
Definitely shock and disbelief, but there were really no indications that our financial fragility was that severe. I was welcoming new students. I was writing new programs. So it was really it was almost like a parallel universe that didn't align with my experience.
I'm just thinking about this, right? I mean, we saw before the pandemic this sort of steadily decreasing number of college students in this country. The pandemic made it even worse when we started to see more of the students leaving colleges and not being able to get that college education in some cases. Is this part of a bigger trend that we're seeing in this country?
It's actually pretty shocking, Aaron. Over the last 10 years or so, the last decade, the numbers have fallen precipitously. Let me say this, in 2020, the fall of 2020, there were 15.9 million undergraduate students. In the fall of 2021, that's 15.4. Even the University of Arts, their enrollment has been declining from, in 2018, 1,900 students to the fall of 2022, 1,300 students. And also, it's not just about losing revenue and losing students. Schools are actually closing. So University of the Arts is one of 14 schools, colleges across the country closed this year. Last year, 33.
Wow, that's amazing to hear numbers that big. I mean, I wonder, too, is all of this having an impact on alumni from UArts and the degrees that they have?
So far, there's no indication that it's affecting them in any real tangible way. But certainly these institutions, as we know, going to undergrad, the sense of pride and love for your community that helped raise you academically. So certainly there's some hurt feelings and a deep concern for the young people who've had their futures possibly dashed.
Yeah, you got to hope that this is a trend that will stabilize and hopefully reverse on some level. Jermaine Lee, we appreciate the reporting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, to tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching for you. This week, Florida entered states around the country that allow high school athletes to earn money off of their name, image, or likeness. That's after a unanimous decision by the Florida High School Athletic Association. Sam Brock sat down with one of the top football recruits in the country right now to talk about what it means for high school athletes.
On a field filled with some of the nation's best high school football talent.
Wow, what a throw. Vernell Brown does it again.
Vernell Brown III isn't just snaring touchdowns. Soon, he'll be snagging deals. After Florida just became the latest state, joining more than 30 others in the District of Columbia to allow high school athletes to cash in on their name, image, and likeness, or NIL, once it's ratified in July.
Do you feel like you're being part of something momentous now as you watch these rules change?
Absolutely. I think the NIL passing was a great thing for me, myself, and other high school athletes. Now we're able to kind of benefit off of our performances and the platform we've built. And
what does it change on a day-to-day basis, if anything?
Personally, I don't think it should change anything.
I don't go to clubs. I don't go to bars.
Not the prep work and not the purpose. But Brown and Adidas just unveiled a game-changing new deal.
The Addy 07 Class of 2024 was just named, and it's a selection of 7 of the most elite high school football athletes in the country.
That separates him among the country's most highly recruited athletes.
It's such a huge opportunity for him and the other 6 athletes that are involved in it.
And does that feel extraordinary to you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm extremely grateful for it.
Brown's father, Vernell Brown Jr., is manager and mentor for former Florida Gator turned Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson, and has seen NIL transform the sports world and open doors.
After all the sacrifices that families have made, how critical is that?
I think it's extremely critical. I think having this opportunity to kind of set yourself and then your family up, and it may not be necessarily financially. Obviously, there's a financial piece to it with NIL. However, I think just the platform, bringing more notice.
And the platform has exploded. The NFL Network now airs these games from OT7, the group providing a stage here for the sport's best players, where Brown's South Florida Express, or SFE, a pipeline for NFL talent, an all-star club, is competing and gaining exposure.
SFE's first NFL Network game, I have 4 touchdowns. So definitely a lot of good publicity from that, and like I said, just helping to build my brand.
So you picked a good time to crush.
Correct.
While the massive attention has raised the profile and earning power of high school athletes, some Florida coaches still have questions.
The fabric of college athletics has completely changed. I hope this doesn't do that to the fabric of high school athletics.
There are guardrails in the Florida rules to keep it on track, from the products students can't endorse to no use of school equipment, names, or property. And athletes and their parents or guardians collectively have to agree on deals. While Brown's gridiron skill is still the driver, he says players can now take advantage of their abilities off the field, too.
Just like collegiate athletes and professional athletes put that time and hard work in, I think high school athletes put it in as well. So I definitely think there should be some benefit for them as well that pays off for their hard work and ultimately give us a financial jump start, in life.
And Sam Brock is joining us now from Tampa. Sam, on one hand, this obviously is a great opportunity for the kids involved here, right? But you did have that one coach saying that high school is kind of like your last chance to just be a kid, right? What's the bigger picture here? How could this impact high school sports programs across the country?
Well, they still are kids, Aaron, and they still are student athletes. But the reality is, if you have corporations that are willing to invest in these student athletes, want to promote them, want to make money off of them, why should the student athletes not also benefit? And that's where we are right now. The Pandora's box of this really started with college sports, and of course, now it has trickled down to the high school level as well. I would point out a couple of things. One, this doesn't kick off in Florida until 2024, 2025, so the next season could be a couple of months from now. But a lot of these deals we're talking about at the high school level are structured for 1 year, and then they basically expire once the athlete enrolls in college. The key here, though, Aaron, is preventing abuse. And there are multiple laws or parts of these bylaws that seek to do just that. Unlike college, you cannot have a collective where third-party boosters spend a lot of money to try to lure students in. That cannot happen at this level. And then the students themselves cannot even switch schools to sign another NIL deal unless they get an exemption. So there's all sorts of guardrails that are in place. But the reality right now is this is a wave of the future that we're seeing not just in the college level, but right here on the high school level, too. Aaron,
right.
Back to you.
Is there a game coming up here, Sam? Are you about to go in? What's happening?
I would think about it, except I don't want to have to show them how this is really done. So I'll just stay on the sidelines for now. What do you think?
Nicely played, my friend. Good to see you, Sam. Thanks.
Thanks.
Coming up, why stuff stolen from Taco Bell is ending up on the underground art market for like thousands of dollars. Stick around. When most people, when most people visit a Taco Bell, they're looking for a quick bite, right? Maybe a Crunch Wrap or Baja Blast, something like that. But for some people, Taco Bell is the perfect place to pull off an art heist. People are stealing decor right off the walls, and they're selling it for literally thousands of dollars. Laura Barrett has the story.
The Louvre, scene of the mysterious disappearance of the Mona Lisa.
They were the height of heists that rocked the art world. Way back in 1911, the Mona Lisa snatched from the halls of the Louvre.
The theft from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum was shockingly simple.
Fast forward to 1990.
Has it crossed your mind you may never see these works again?
Two men dressed as police officers brazenly walked out of Boston's Gardner Museum with 13 paintings, totaling $500 million. Today, another scandal unfolding, and it's hitting the art world right in the chalupa. That's right, artwork mysteriously gone missing. Not from a museum or gallery, but from, well, Taco Bell. They're now going for big bucks on the black market.
I kind of think of it as the GameStop of art heist.
Reports of paintings disappearing from the franchises started in 2015, more than a decade after artist Mark T. Smith had been commissioned to create them.
It's kind of comical in a way. The way it was framed, it was like this great art heist, you know, and it just had like the Thomas Crown affair.
Smith is an accomplished painter, shown in galleries across the country, and has done work for campaigns like Absolute Vodka and the 2008 Olympics, work that fans wanted to collect. The Taco Bell art, though?
I wasn't expecting that with Taco Bell, frankly. It's a nice endorsement. It's not like somebody giving you a compliment at a show of your work. It's just more authentic than that way.
The pieces now selling on eBay are mere copies of Smith's original work. And yet, look at this post for $10,000.
I think in an age of social media, it's definitely bragging rights, and that's a big part of it. It's easier to fence something that's a print rather than an original. Not that I would know personally.
We spoke with one eBay seller who said he found the prints for sale on Facebook and recognized them instantly.
It was like something triggered inside of me. I'm like, oh my God, I totally remember those. Like, iconic. These things are iconic, man. Nostalgia wins every time.
It turns out the old saying is true, but with a twist. Art is in the eye of the taco holder.
Maura Barrett is joining us now. It's a little weird. You listen to Smith, right? To Mark T. Smith, the artist here, and he he seems to sort of endorse it, or at least not be bothered by it. Is he not upset that people are stealing his art, committing crime to get his art?
Well, I mean, his point of view is that it's creating buzz, it's getting people talking, they're remembering this nostalgia that this art's been in Taco Bell's for 20 plus years. He also made a point when we interviewed him that he wanted to partner with Taco Bell and other clients like this because he usually does work that shows up in galleries that only a small percentage of people get to see. He wanted to put something on the public that more people would get to see, get to appreciate real art in the public. And so now that this trend is ongoing, he sees it as a further appreciation of sorts.
Okay, I get it. I mean, I guess, you know, what is it? No, only bad press is no press, or no, something like that. I guess it's
all press is good press. There it is.
That makes a lot more sense. More Barrett. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, still to come, the alleged inspiration behind Baby Reindeer suing Netflix for a ton of money. How the streamer is responding. Next. Well, Netflix says it's going to fight a massive lawsuit involving the popular series Baby Reindeer. A woman sued, saying she was ID'd online as the basis for the character of a stalker on that show. Netflix saying in a statement, "We intend to defend this matter vigorously and to stand by Richard Gadd's right to tell his story." Gadd is the creator and star of this series, who says it's based off of true events from his own life. Fiona Harvey, seen here in an interview with Piers Morgan, is seeking $170 million because of a portrayal she says was inaccurate in that show. The lawsuit says she is, quote, an innocent woman defamed at a magnitude and scale without precedent. Here's Matt Bradley.
So this is kind of the news that we've all been waiting for when it comes to Baby Reindeer, which has been an absolute sensation here in the UK. I mean, it gets far more attention than the Royals or the elections that are coming up. This is a game changer, and everybody, when you see this show, you think somebody's going to get sued, and sure enough, that's exactly what seems to be happening. $170 million on the part of the woman who claims to be the woman who is portrayed in this show. Now, she says that the show has misportrayed her as being a violent criminal. She says she never spent time in jail. She never committed criminal assault. The show, it sounds like, wasn't saying that. And now the show does say that this is based on a true story, but one that isn't necessarily based on individual facts or details. This is what you do when you present a television show like that that is based on a true story. However, internet sleuths, and we can always rely on them, they managed to find this woman and outed her, and she has not been shy. Consistent with the character that's portrayed in the show, she went on Piers Morgan to give an interview just a couple of weeks ago. That got a lot of eyeballs as well. And again, this is something that a lot of British people are watching because it takes place here in London. Now, we heard from the show's creator, Mr. Gadd. He did say that if they had been planning on doing a truthful story, they would have done a truthful story and named names. So he's saying they did everything they possibly could to keep this woman from the spotlight. But at the end of the day, it looks as though she was discovered. These things are inevitable. And she's very, very angry. And if you've ever watched the show, you can tell why.
All right, that is a wrap for this hour. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Aaron Gilchrist in for Hallie Jackson, and coverage continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.